This show is exclusively textile waste. All of the fabrics that are included were headed to landfill. They're things that I intercepted. Even the thread that I used was intercepted on its way to landfill. There are some little masks that I rescued off the ground on the way to sterilize and reuse them. I care deeply about textile waste. I was first exposed to the problem when I was a young corporate designer in the interiors industry. I saw the sampling process. It was disturbing to me that even in an industry that was working at being green, that there was still a lot of waste. And I used to take the samples home, play with them, and that sort of has started me along this journey of learning how to quilt, because that was a very natural thing of what to do with scraps. But then I also found that I was really trying to break out. I spent years learning how to quilt, and then I spent years learning how to unquilt and get back to the roots that I had before of being a painter. When I started separating my tiny scraps into color categories, and all of a sudden the scraps started acting like paint again. This show in particular is really fun to share because I try to still show some of my love for the art of quilting, but also breaking out of that and moving into this sculptural and more free-form version of what I've been playing with. Some of these pieces really are very obvious in the marriage that I'm making between quilting and this new scrap type of painterly thing. This rounded piece that I have here has multiple patches of quilted pieces. Again, those are still textile scraps, and they're still coming from the same pieces, many of them discarded by local interior designers who call me up when they find out I'm an artist that uses this kind of material. And I'm trying to find a way to bridge this gap of what I'm moving towards, which is this very sculptural and scrappy thing, but also acknowledging how many years I've spent learning these difficult skills, how to quilt. So this rounded one in particular feels like a good representation to me of all the things I was trying to get out in this body of work. I'm actually individually placing each piece. If you envision the way I'm making it, which is sitting with a big bucket of scraps on my lap in front of my sewing machine and placing and actually wrinkling and twisting as I go, it really does make sense almost as an impressionist painting. So it creates this movement in the fabric, again, not wanting to lay flat like a quilt, but instead wanting to have some body and a little bit of like awkwardness intentionally. I'm looking for creating more visual movement. I'm trying to play with the textures of all the different fabrics. There's vinyl in there, there are leather samples, clothing bits, little denim pieces, and there's cuffs. It would be like working with different bodies of paint, so I have different bodies of texture. My goal is to create something that has a lot of visual interest where every time you look at it, it's something different. And every time you walk by it, you think, oh, I didn't even notice that piece before. The pieces are all in black and white. Partially it was given to me as a challenge. Christine, who curated it, was telling me, you know, the concept is that if it doesn't work in black and white, maybe it doesn't work. And so I took the challenge, and there was times when I thought that was really difficult. Working with that, can I come up with enough composition and enough ways to play with color even still? And I feel like I was successful at that in this body of work. I am constantly pushing the idea of, will your brain still read this as white if I put in yellows and pinks here or grays? And I'm definitely playing with color even when I'm in a monotone or a monochromatic color grouping. I called this Nuances because I have been thinking a lot about gray areas lately. I think that things are so black and white right now. We're super divided in our world and in our nation, and there's very little space for nuance, and there's very little gray area, and I think that there's a lot more gray area than our world right now has space for. So I wanted to think about the spaces in between black and white. I'm trying to make some beauty out of so much of the ugly that I see in the world.